You know, we spend a lot of time talking about engines and transmissions, the big mechanical parts of our cars. But what about the electrical system? It's just as vital. And what happens when the heart of that system, the alternator, starts working a little too hard? Well, that's what we're digging in today, the overcharging alternator. It sounds super technical, I know, but the clues your car gives you are actually pretty easy to spot. And trust me, ignoring them, that can be a really costly mistake.
So, let me ask you something. Have you ever been driving at night and thought, whoa, my headlights seem way brighter than usual, like almost blindingly bright? Yeah, you're not going crazy. That could actually be the very first and most obvious sign that your car's charging system is going haywire.
Your car can't exactly speak to you in English, right? But it definitely has ways of communicating when something is seriously wrong. So let's learn its language. Let's talk about the telltale warning signs, the clear cries for help that point directly to an overcharging alternator.
Okay, let's break this down by what you can actually see, smell, and notice. You might physically see the battery case starting to bulge or look swollen. That's because the fluid inside is literally boiling. Then you might smell something, a really distinct rotten egg smell. That's sulfuric acid cooking off the battery. Not good. Of course, you'll definitely notice those crazy bright or flickering lights, or find yourself replacing the same headlight bulb over and over again. And finally, if you ignore all that, your car will just tell you directly with a battery or check engine light on the dash.
So what are we really talking about when we say overcharging? Well, think about it like this. Your car's entire electrical system is designed to live in this happy little zone, somewhere between 13.5 and 14.5 volts. Overcharging is what happens when the alternator just goes rogue and starts pumping out way more than that. We're talking 15, 16, I've even seen up to 19 volts. This massive surge of power just fries the battery and puts all of your car's delicate electronic components at huge risk.
All right, so you've noticed some of these weird signs, but how can you be absolutely sure? Well, the good news is you don't have to guess. With a really simple tool called a multimeter, you can get a hard number, a definitive answer, in just a couple of minutes.
And it's a super simple three-step process. Seriously. First, with the engine totally off, you just connect the multimeter to the battery terminals. That's going to give you a baseline reading. Then, you go ahead and start the car, which kicks the alternator into action. And finally, you just check that multimeter again to see exactly how much voltage the alternator is putting out. That's it.
And this is the moment of truth. See, with the engine off, both a healthy system and a broken one are going to look pretty much the same, right around 12.5 volts. But the real test is when that engine turns on. A healthy system pops right up into that green zone, that perfect 13.5 to 14.5 volt range. But look over at the overcharging system. The voltage just shoots past that, consistently reading above 15 volts. If you see that on your multimeter, well, you've found your problem.
So, we figured out the what, too much voltage. Now we get to play detective and figure out the why. What part is actually failing and causing all this electrical chaos in your car? In the huge majority of these cases, the problem isn't the whole alternator itself. Nope, it's one specific, kind of small component hiding inside of it called the voltage regulator. And this little part, it has a massive job.
Think of the voltage regulator as the bouncer at the club for your car's electrical system. Its only job is to stand at the door and make sure things don't get out of control. As soon as the voltage hits that 14.5 volt limit, the bouncer steps in and tells the alternator to back off. But when that regulator fails, the bouncer just walks away, the gate is stuck wide open, and an uncontrolled flood of voltage comes pouring in.
And I mean, just look at this breakdown. It's not even close. That faulty voltage regulator, that giant slice of the pie, that's the culprit a whopping 80% of the time. Sure, other things like bad wiring or a computer glitch can cause it, but they're way less common. The investigation pretty much always starts and ends with that regulator. Now, while the regulator is our #1 suspect, it's good to know about these other long shots. Sometimes it can be something as simple as a bad ground wire that's tricking the system. And on a lot of modern cars, the main computer, the ECM, is what manages the charging. So if that computer or one of its sensors go bad, well, you get the same dangerous result.
Okay, we've identified the symptoms, we've run the test, and we've found our most likely cause. So that leads us to the final and most important question. How in the world do you fix it? And here is the single most important thing to remember. This isn't one of those repairs where you can just tinker with a little part and hope for the best. Nope. When an alternator is overcharging because that regulator failed, the fix is almost always replacement.
And here's why. That is, see, way back in the day, on older cars, you might have been able to just swap out the voltage regulator itself. But on pretty much every modern car, that little part is built directly into the alternator. It's all one sealed unit, and it's not really designed to be taken apart and serviced. That makes replacing the entire thing the only real, practical, and reliable solution.
So, let's lay out your action plan. Step 1. That overcharging alternator has to go. Replace the entire assembly. Step 2, and this is so important, you absolutely have to test the battery. An overcharging event like this almost always damages it. And if you put a brand new alternator in with a bad battery, you're just going to kill the new part. And finally, step 3, considering what's at stake with your car's sensitive electronics, this really isn't a simple driveway job. Your best bet is to seek professional help to make sure it's all done safely and correctly.
So there you have it. You now know some of the language your car speaks. You know that super bright headlights or a funny rotten egg smell aren't just little quirks you can ignore. They're actually warnings from the central nervous system of your vehicle. And paying attention to these little details can save you from a whole mess of expensive problems down the road. So, on your next drive, what are you going to be paying attention to?